Hello and welcome to Learn in Public with Doug and Erik. I am Erik.
And I'm Doug.
And we are here to discuss our solo entrepreneur online creator businesses with each other in public so that hopefully you can learn something from our conversations too. And we do this every week, and we are now on episode 8. And yes, I am going to be in the hot seat this week with some questions for Doug about launching a mighty network, which he's done and I haven't. And so he is going to start first with an update. Take it away, Doug.
Thanks, Erik. Good to be chatting with you again this week. I think my update is a little follow-up on what I talked about last week, which was potentially relevant to our conversation today. Last time we talked about kind of my combo of a YouTube plus Mighty Networks strategy. Like those are kind of the only two places where I spend my time, making videos for YouTube and then hosting a community on Mighty Networks. And a lot of my experimentation since we've started chatting has been on the YouTube strategy side, some on the Mighty Networks as well. But the latest YouTube experiment, which I've had some time with now since last week, is not doing daily videos, which is kind of crazy. And I knew that wouldn't be sustainable when I started that experiment, but I decided to shift from, making kind of short behind the scenes daily videos to my focus now, which is just on doing visual book summaries. Those have been videos that I know have performed well in the past on YouTube, kind of can bring people into my sketchnoting world, even if they didn't know about sketchnoting. Maybe they were just searching for a book. So I'm focusing in on that. And it's the challenging part of it is that it's a longer stretch of time before I get the payoff of hitting publish. That's kind of a challenging thing for me because that is motivating to have that momentum of putting something out there regularly.
Sure.
So I'm feeling that a little bit, but I am really enjoying the pace of just spending more time reading each day. I know what book I'm going to make a video about next. So I've got that one to spend some time on, but then there are also 2 or 3 other books that I'm also kind of slowly working my way through. So I can do a little bit of bouncing around. And the result of that too is that I've spent a lot less time on screens. So I do my daily email check. I do my daily check of what's going on inside of Verbal to Visual, keep up with the community there. But kind of once I've done both of those things for the day, I try to close my laptop and, if at all possible, not open it up again and just spend my time with books.
Isn't that nice?
So that's been nice. Just a different pace that I think has been what I'm shooting for. So yeah, that's kind of my little update. Feeling good so far, at least with that shift that I identified last week.
So how many of those how often do you think you'll be publishing now?
Yeah, that's the hard thing, is whether I want to try to set a publishing schedule. I think roughly a new video every couple of weeks, every 2 or 3 weeks probably is what it'll be. Eventually, if I get a good groove in it, and if things aren't too crazy in my personal life as far as parenting responsibilities, 1 or 2 a month I think is the goal.
Would you consider maybe sketchnoting those books in 2 parts? Here's the book part 1, finish the first half and sketchnote that, and just to get a kind of a more closer to a weekly schedule?
I think I don't think that's what I want to do. No.
No.
I think I actually kind of like being away from a weekly schedule.
Okay.
From at least how I'm spending my time. From a
Sure.
YouTube strategy, that there are some benefits to that for sure. But I think I really like the idea of getting to know a full book, deciding what aspects of that book I want to highlight and take with me personally, and share publicly in a video about it. And then like that's the video that I put out, at least,
Sure.
of that book. I think those are the ones that
Yeah.
like can kind of pack the most punch over time as well. Um,
It's just
so
my
for now,
marketing mind
oh no,
that
for sure,
asks a question like that.
yeah, it's not a bad strategy
Like,
at all,
I'm
and
like,
that might
you know,
be relevant too. In the could be another little experimental tweak that I try out after I see what it's like to do one full book at a time. Um,
mhm.
so yeah, that's kind of what's going on over here.
Cool, 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 cool.
Bro, to you, what would you like to chat about for your hot seat today?
Well, I am. I've been working with the person who's been coaching me on kind of getting everything, all the ideas and everything together for my course and community for Awaken Your Myth, and that's been great. We've met for the last 3 weeks now. We got one more meeting, and then I'm kind of on my own, but I feel like I have a really good path for this right now.
Hmm.
The place, I guess, where I'm still looking for strategy, help, confidence is in launching a community, and the person I'm working with gave me a 35-day pre-launch strategy using, a free webinar type course that I'm going to teach, which I'm excited to teach anyway. But I know that you have launched a community, and you kind of took some people that you had already as, that were in your courses and things like that. I'm curious what your experiences were, what you came away with going, I would have done it differently, or I'm sure glad I did that. And anything, how long has it been now since you launched that?
About 2.5 years. It was March of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, like I've got this podcast audience of people who, they come to me to sleep better and to meditate. And so I'm kind of looking at this as like a natural extension of the people who really like the meditation part. The people who are just there to fall asleep and are kind of like, oh, I skip the meditations. I probably, most of them won't be potential people who would join this. But I feel like there's a lot of crossover there, and I want to have a kind of a low barrier to entry. So what we've come up with is the first webinar course, which will be a 90-minute overview of the whole thing, will be about that'll be free, and then we're going to do a $97 5-week course where you get 6 weeks in the community with it. So you'll be, you can sign up for a week in the community for free. So you can take the first week of the course, come to one of the lives on because there's going to be a live Zoom every week to kind of to answer people's questions and talk about subjects in the course. But it'll be dripped out over 5 weeks. And then if you want to join after that, you can join monthly or you can join yearly. And then I want to have an advanced course that I'm going to run cohort based probably once a year, which would be like a 5-month course. So I feel like I have a good solid plan, and like these things, this introductory course is going to be loaded with value. I think it'll be a good way to get people into the community. And having this like 35-day pre-launch thing, so that when the first course starts, there'll be a group of people who all kind of get access to the community at the same time together. So it's like we open the doors, and it's not like just one person shows up, because that was one thing I was like, how do you what happens for that first person who joins the community and goes, oh crap, I'm like the first person at the party. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to be that person, right?
Right.
So this is my current strategy that I've worked out with this coach who's done this before.
Hmm.
So I'm curious, how does this look to you? What did you do differently? And what any advice, thoughts?
Yeah. No, this is great. I think this looks really good. Like the first thing that came to mind for me was what I've seen in my experience with Mighty Networks is the benefit of having like a live course experience that you're going to be running. And it's like, it's discreet. I think it makes sense that like the price point that you're charging, I think works, and paying. That's how I started my transition to Mighty Networks. I had already created 5 or 6 courses, but I was just starting to create a new one when I transitioned to Mighty Networks. That new course was
Mm-hmm.
digital sketchnoting, so using a tablet and stylus for your
Right.
sketchnoting. And that was like the first live experience that folks were getting as they were coming in to the new Mighty Network. So because of that,
Mm-hmm.
because there was this new course going on, a lot of people were actively engaging in it and sharing their work. And that made the Mighty Network itself as a whole pretty active, because there
Mm-hmm.
was this course going on where we were meeting each week in kind of a similar format to what you're describing. When I launched it, I think I had, prior to moving over to Mighty Networks, I was on a pay per course model. So people paid one fee for lifetime access to a course that I had developed. At
Mm-hmm.
various times over the years, I had experimented with having a community component too, like a monthly or annual fee associated with continuing to meet every week.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been away from that for a while, but coming to Mighty Networks, I wanted to bring that back in. So I had that
Mm-hmm.
as a separate thing that people could purchase. So they could still come in and join an individual course. And if they wanted to, they could also join the community, um, which was just like that was a group within Mighty Networks where we met weekly, and I had more prompts and had some ongoing things in that community side. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and like what I noticed, where I am now is like I kind of simplified that down to just have like one single subscription offer. So rather than people paying for per course, they just pay one monthly or annual fee to get access to everything. I've mentioned this to you before, Eric. In some ways, I think I am like quote unquote leaving money on the table, or like gotten away from what you are starting with, which is this like one-time payment for kind of this value delivery, this experience of an online course. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but what I want to say that I like about this setup is that for me it has been, and I think continues to be actually, it's the live course experiences that where people get to know each other. It's kind of where you can develop that sense of community to the point where
Mm-hmm.
the folks that go through your 5 week course, some percentage of them are going to want to like stay in contact with that group of people, with you, with the energy of that course. And those are the people
Yeah.
that are going to join your monthly or yearly thing because they will have learned a lot, but there's no way they're going to be able to implement all of those things in those 5 weeks during the course. So I imagine then, like, whatever you set up for your kind of regular activities for the people that join the monthly or yearly, if that is exclusively about like helping people apply what they learned in the course, then like that's meaningful. Like
Yeah,
continuing.
that's the idea.
Yeah.
That everything's
Um,
going to be focused on, you know, using these things and like supporting each other to create this transformation in everybody's life.
yeah.
So it really it kind of this course kind of hinges on community.
Yeah.
You know, like there's really only going to be this basic course and then the advanced course, and it's kind of just then it's just applying all these things and going through the subtleties and answering people's specific questions, helping them through their stuff around it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's going to be the most satisfying part for me, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're going to get so much insight and connection with these folks around the topics based on, what they share and the questions that they bring in and the their like aha moments and their like moments of transformation that like you help facilitate. That's going to be really cool.
I think so too.
I'll also mention too, what I like about your setup here is that I think there's kind of a stronger singular through line across your 3 offers that kind of doesn't quite exist for verbal to visual. Like it, at least within like the number of, at verbal to visual, we have like 8 courses now. Some people might be interested in all of them, but others it's much more like pick and choose, go this direction for a while, then try this thing out. But like what I appreciate about your model here is that it has this focus to it, and it's just a matter of like, okay, how deep does any individual person want to go? Maybe they just want the $97 course and they're going to get what they needed out of that. Some people are going to go deeper and want the monthly or yearly to have that regular connection. Some people are ready to like see the most results possible, so they'll sign up for whatever the advanced course is. But that kind of just feels really cohesive, and feels like a great model to me.
Cool. Okay, good. I'm glad. So when you did yours, what was day 1 like, and how did you build up to that?
Yeah. Day 1, I remember there being a lot of positive energy early on because there were kind of 2 components to my start with Mighty Networks. One was just a platform switch. People who had been used to accessing my courses on a WordPress site, and then they come over to this new site, Mighty Networks, that it's a lot more vibrant. There's a lot more sharing going on. It's easier to kind of interact and see what other people are up to. So that brought a fresh energy to it. And then also, since there was this new course going on with like events happening each week, there was that built-in opportunity for folks to kind of participate. So those were kind of like the 2 sources of new positive energy, which I think that, since your launch is all based around this course, what are you thinking as far as like when will they actually join the Mighty Network? Will they like get access to that space right when the 5 weeks starts, right when the course starts, or like a little bit before or a lot before? What are you thinking there?
The course will be a drip course with a set curriculum for those 5 weeks, and that'll be all pre-made. And then there will be a live meeting every week to go over people's questions or just to kind of like dive deeper into aspects of the course. So the whole group will get together. The first time we do it, it'll be week 1. Everyone will be on week 1 together.
Gotcha.
But then as people, like if you joined in like say week 3 of the Mighty Network after it opened, you would start your week 1 course.
Gotcha.
With just a drip. Basically, you'd get week 1
week at a time,
and then you would come to the weekly meeting and ask any questions you had, and basically all the themes and everything weave together. So, and this was the way that the mindfulness certification training I took went. It was like it was a self-paced class that there were weekly Zoom calls that you could just join. And there was a guided meditation at the beginning of those, which is something I think I'll probably do. I'll do it'll probably be like a 90-minute or 2-hour weekly call. And I'll do a guided meditation in the beginning, kind of get everybody on the same page, bring the energy to the right space, and then people can bring their questions. And I think that whether you're in week 1 or week 5, the questions are, it's not like so much of a progressive, like the people who are in week 5 know so much more than the people in week 1 that it would be holding them back. They're all kind of the same concepts working towards an understanding and a realization of these things in our lives. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think it's great. Because what I can imagine too is that you will probably see, kind of a core group of people that shows up regularly to those weekly calls, like from week 1, and they become, your maybe the original cohort or the first cohort, and they'll be the ones who maybe get to know the material deepest and get to know each other deepest. So I'm like imagining come week 3 or 4, or even 10 or 11 or 12, for the folks that continue having those calls, some of those folks will still be there. So you'll have, you'll be creating this kind of like helpful spectrum of experience with your course materials, so that someone who comes in later and they're on like week 2, they show up to a weekly call, they get to see you, they get to see these other community members, and they can see like, oh, some of these other community members, they've got a bit more experience than me. That's cool. But there's also some other like newer folks like me, and I'm going to bring in my question, and like I have both. You get those helpful perspectives from people along that spectrum of experience, that I think has the kind of greatest likelihood of someone having a helpful suggestion for that newer person that comes in with a question. And then, like, ideal scenario, someone does join a call week 2 or 3, sees kind of how valuable those calls are, sees that built-in kind of community, and decides to, after the course, continue because they want to stay in touch with those people and they want to keep having that weekly call as a source of positive energy and momentum with like this particular work.
That's the idea. Yeah, basically, is to have that weekly support call be something that you can just hop on, every week if you want, or, once or twice a month, just to kind of get, back on track, or like keep accountability, And
there's not new, from your end, you don't have to create new resources for that call each week.
Right.
You get to be there and support and answer questions and just like facilitate a discussion.
Do my Yoda impressions.
Well, and what I'll say, this will be great. What I appreciate about how Mighty Networks puts things out, and like there doesn't have to be, you don't have to have like 50 really engaged people for the first handful of weeks in this course, or ever. Like, as long as you have like 2 or 3 people that are kind of engaging, like that's enough to get this ball rolling. So that I feel like is a helpful mindset going in. Like, you don't have to have massive numbers for this to be meaningful early on, and small numbers of engagement early on doesn't mean that there won't be large numbers in the future, right? It can and it will grow. So I think like the biggest thing then maybe is tapping into the energy that's going to be there at the very beginning of this launch, that's not going to be there later on, like at the start of this thing. I mean, and I feel like you're doing it. The structure is set up for people. So the one question I had, like you mentioned a 35-day pre-launch. Someone that buys it the very first day that it's available during the pre-launch, pre-sale, whatever it is, will they enter the Mighty Network in that moment?
No.
Or, okay, so you won't open the doors to the Mighty Network until week one, which I think is
Yeah.
good because like then you get, 50 people, let's say, sign up or do the pre-sign up over a span of a month. They all enter
Right.
the space at the same time, and
Yes.
you get that nice like meet and greet energy.
That's what I want.
Yeah,
Yeah. Not that like, oh, there's nobody at the party.
yeah,
And I was kind of curious, like, how do you do that? And that was the good tip that I got from my coach is that, yeah, you just, you have everybody come in at the same time.
Have you
And so I
decided like
think
what
that'll be
the
good.
first like are you gonna have some sort of a welcome question or like icebreaker? Like what have you thought about what you want their first um act of like engaging with this community? What do you want that to be?
I haven't. I haven't thought about that yet. That's all like on my list of things to do. I do know that I want it to be like a great experience.
Yeah.
The difference between your Mighty Network and half a dozen others that I joined just to see like what do people do with their Mighty Networks is that yours was vibrant, interesting, loaded with value right off the bat. And I was just like, oh, yeah, nothing about this is disappointing.
Mm.
It was all just like, oh, this is great. But half a dozen others were disappointing.
Mm.
There was like nobody there. The most recent post was months old.
Mm.
It was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Nobody cares about this. So I don't want there to be any of that energy at all. I do imagine the very first day that it opens, I'll do a live. I will have a recorded welcome video kind of telling people what's there, and I'll have lots of things available like guided meditations.
Nice.
I'm going to include the premium version of the podcast for everybody who starts. So that's going to be hundreds of stories that they can listen to, many of which are the hero's journey. And I'll make a video about that,
Yeah.
look at these stories and kind of like spot the elements, that you can look for in your own life and kind of make that connection right off the bat. And talk about mythology, talk about personal mythology. I want to have a bunch of videos in there,
Yeah.
to give people something to watch and do, and have a question. And I also am wondering about like, I know you have the Wednesday things that you do is sort of a way to have accountability, and like people can join a group where they're showing their work every week, or they're there asking questions. In what ways have you found that kind of thing to work in your community? Because I do want to have that for people. I want to give the people who want accountability a way to do that. And do you have any tips, ideas on that?
Yeah. So the way I've seen that play out is using those weekly calls, to do a live run through of a course that already exists. So like as we're going through run course and then another course and then another course, each live run through, it kind of like it has its own little kind of cohort of people, distinct cohort. There's some overlap, some people want to go from one to the next to the next. But a lot of it is kind of like around that particular course. So there is an element of like kind of a regular reminder of like, okay, what's the goal of this course? What are we hoping you get to? And then at the end of each call, recognizing that, each person participating is going to be at a different spot on that journey, but kind of just stepping back a little bit, reminding what that big picture is, where you're helping people to go, giving them a chance to like reflect on, okay, now I see like, here's where I am. and kind of like, here's what I want to do next. So a little bit, I mean, kind of like like these calls, this opportunity for people to say, here's where I am right now. Maybe through this call, I've got a sense for where I want to go next. And I also know that like a week from now, I'm going to have an opportunity to check in again.
Right.
So even just like referencing that as the journey, I think is a way to make those effective. At one point, I was a little bit explicit about, at the end of each call, I asked, or at least, yeah, I gave everyone the opportunity to identify, like, what do you want to be held accountable for by next week? Like, what do you want us to check in on, regarding, one thing you want to do as a follow-up to this call. And then at the beginning of the next call, pull that up and like give people a chance to see, what they said last week. They can share how it went. I stopped doing that. I can't remember why, if it felt like that was kind of taking up too much time or not as welcoming to new members, or a little bit too much of like, school, did you do what you're supposed to do? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think that needs to be there. It's almost nicer to maybe
Sure.
not have that there, because like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it has a different sort of energy when that's not there. It's more just about showing up and, getting whatever momentum going you can. But
And
then,
you
sorry,
have
there's
other
one
places
more.
where people can. Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
one other thing, and this might be what we're going to ask about, but like, giving some sort of a direction around how folks can continue to interact throughout the week with each other, not like necessarily with you. And that could just be simply, sharing updates wherever updates will live, like people sharing their personal updates or sharing their own work, wherever that will live within your Mighty Network.
Yeah,
And verbal to
that's.
visual,
I
it's
was
like
kind of
the
wondering
share your
about
sketch
that.
notes.
Yeah.
Some people have fairly organically started to have their own like group chats. So like 2 or 3 people that have recognized through live events that they kind of like connect with each other, or like they're vibing on the same level. They kind of start their own like group chat thread, which you can do within Mighty Networks, just as a smaller group place to continue having conversations about, sketchnoting in my case.
Right.
And they can identify the topics that you explore there. So that would be another place, maybe
Yeah, and I think I would
facilitating
like
some
to
sort of sharing
encourage that.
or small group interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. And that you find that happens pretty much organically.
Um,
Do you think there's a way to facilitate it, to encourage it, to help that along? Because I think that is it could be a great value, especially with what I'm doing.
yeah, I think, yeah, you can definitely encourage it. Like, I'm not sure. I mean, the lowest thing you could do is just say like, hey, if you're feeling connected with some other people here and want to start a small group chat, that's a thing that you can do. I encourage you to like reach out to a couple folks. I'm thinking about other ways to facilitate the creation of those small groups. At first, well, it could almost be manual. Like you could start the group thread with a couple of people that you think would, maybe that you notice click well or would enjoy continuing to chat. You could start the group thread, message those people, and just like, hey, it seemed like you all enjoyed chatting with each other. Here's a group thread if you want to keep the conversation going.
I think that's a great idea.
That's one way you could do it.
Yeah.
And then you
I
could
just
almost
check
like
in
bow
on
out.
those too.
Yeah, you could either bow out of
I
it,
could
or
bow
you
out, or I
could
could check
continue
in.
to check in.
Yeah. I mean, I think while I have time, I mean, if it gets to be so big that I just can't do that, then I won't do that. But
Yeah.
in the beginning, I think that would be great. I'd love to be that involved.
Yeah.
And kind of, I almost could make that a selling point for the beginning, like, hey, look, this is going to be as small as this ever is. You're going to get the most attention from me. And, like this is going to be a special time to join this.
Yeah.
Let's make it special together.
Yeah. And even what I'm imagining with those weekly calls, each week you'll have a certain number of like new folks chatting or that have joined for the first time. And man, this would be actually a pretty impressive follow-up from their perspective if the day after or even like an hour after that weekly call, if you send a group message to all the people who had just joined for the first time, saying like, hey, cool to see all you here for the first time. Here's a group thread if you want to keep in touch. So it's almost like you are creating those mini cohorts on the fly for people just by noticing, okay, who showed up for the first time on this weekly call. And then I could see that being a potential thread to someone choosing to continue to join the monthly or yearly after the 5 weeks. Just because if they have established some folks that they enjoy chatting with and want to keep that. So that could be interesting.
Okay. And I know we probably got to wrap this up soon, but I'm kind of curious if, like, off the top of your head, if you have ideas for like what you did last week, laying out your new Mighty Network, of what this would look like and a way to kind of use spaces to do some of this stuff, because I know you've been diving into spaces lately and you know more about it than I do.
Yeah. So like what the structure of your Mighty Network could look like with
not
spaces
not the whole thing, but like if you think, oh, it would be cool, just maybe one thing, it would be cool if, or you could lay this out like that. Because I'm I'm still not sure about how I'm going to integrate the courses thing, because I do still want to run my billing through Thrivecart.
Okay.
And I may use Thrivecart Learn, and just it's pretty easy to just have a link to the community and go back and forth in the thing. Do you see any potential problems with that? Like, I noticed that there's comments in the actual courses, but it doesn't seem like too many people use those.
Not too
other
much.
than the actual course, is there much of a reason to have it so tightly integrated?
Man, I really like it because of, the things that folks are going to be talking about in those weekly calls, some of the resources. I mean, I guess I just really like having the resources right there, all the resources right there, right where the conversations are taking place. So I really enjoy the simplicity of it. However, like even if the course is run through Thrivecart, there could still be like, in the same place where these resources live, you could still have resources from the course in the Mighty Network if there are like, I don't know, summaries or handouts or overviews or
I could, I just don't have to actually, do the courses module there. But here's the thing. It doesn't really matter all that much, I guess. I could still bill it through Thrivecart and not run the courses through there.
Right.
No.
The benefit there, like people would only have one. If they had to access the course through Thrivecart and then Mighty Networks for all the other things, they would have 2 different logins, right? Like they'd have to create a Thrivecart account. They
technically would, yes. And I think that's probably, I don't know. This is something I need to get some more technical information on. It's just, I'm thinking growing it down the line, that ultimately that extra 2% that Mighty Networks takes could wind up being a substantial amount of money. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if this gets to be as big as I'd like it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, but I also know that if I, you know, I'm going to have to integrate all sorts of Zapier stuff to make this
Yeah.
work, which might be confusing as well.
Yeah. Do you already pay for Zapier?
I do not.
Okay.
I
That
do
that
not,
would be
but
an
I'm
extra.
probably gonna, I'm
You might
probably gonna
it
need
anyway.
to.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna need to for the new podcast integration that I'm gonna switch from Patreon. You know what? This is just gonna get into the weeds with all this. Let's
Yeah.
save
Well,
this for
there
another
are-
episode.
Yeah. Well, it does come. It does come back. I mean, that interesting question of like, okay, what is maybe one thing to for sure have within that Mighty Networks space. You know, I think as long as it's clear that there are these space, this place where there's resources that already exist, like you mentioned, these guided meditations, premium podcasts, like you'll have a home for those, so people will be able to tap into that right away. As long as there's some place where folks can, you know, highlighting where they can share an introduction of themselves about what they're up to and why they're there, why they've joined your Mighty Network, and then some
Where would that go?
um
Like what would you imagine like would be a good space for that?
yeah.
Like where do they do it in your network?
Yeah, most folks, and what I will have, one of my collection of spaces will be this, like a welcome collection. And this is where like your recorded welcome can live. That's
Right.
where you can point people toward, you know, how to fill out their profile and like introduce themselves. So this is where, you know, some sort of like introductions can occur.
And that would be like a feed.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Like, I'll be curious to see, because Mighty Networks, whenever someone joins and like fills out their profile, Mighty Networks kind of highlights it in the main feed as like, oh, here's a new person who just filled out their profile. I'm not quite sure
Okay.
how that's going to play out when they move over to Spaces.
Got it.
But yeah, I think there'll be something for that there.
Okay.
You'll have some sort of like a resources collection or a space for resources. And then you'll have a place where okay, so here's like in the lead into your course, I would from day one make sure to have a place where if there's some sort of if you're using Mighty Networks as the course platform,
I'm
right
sure
there.
I'm going to. I think
Like,
it's going to be a better situation.
some sort of
Yeah.
a prompt that you want people to respond to before they get into the course. Like something that they can respond to, share about themselves, about what they want to get out of it. And I guess the question will be, okay, what do you want them to share within this prompt that's different from what they share in their introduction? But like, what's the thing you want them to respond to and learn about themselves, learn about each other based on like kind of a single prompt or question that kind of sets people up well for whatever they're going to see in the first lessons from your course. So that is maybe one suggestion I have about like what's a unique thing that they can share, a way that they can interact, and that's maybe more specific than what you were asking for around space
I like
organization.
That. I like that.
But,
I like that. I think it's, and I do think that it would be like, you know, what's the beginning of your story? You know, today starts the beginning of your story.
yeah.
You know, what's the setting and the, you know, the introduction kind of,
Yeah.
you know, and it'll give you, and you know, go as deeply into like where you're at right now, because in 5 weeks from now, you're going to be able to look back on this and see, how much progress you've made. So that I think that might be something that'd be really great. And so let's just technically, that would be, if it was in the courses section, the course section, it would be a pre-course prompt. So where does that what sort
does
of
that actually live?
Space type does that live in?
You will probably have like a courses collection, maybe it's even within resources. Is that like, these are all, like, I think every space has to live within a collection of spaces. So
Got it.
If your single course might live within, you could have a courses tab that just has one element. Your like Awaken Your Myth is the course. Or you could have it be on the resources tab along with, your podcast, along with these things. I think like those are your options. And then within this space, you kind of get to decide like what are the tabs of that space, what are the different features that you're going to use. One of them will be like course materials, just like the table of contents of the course. So I think it would be within this is a table of contents.
So that'd be like a page.
This is it's not a page. So a table of contents is a feature type. A page is a different feature type. So table of contents is where you would actually, have all the course materials. But then you would have some sort of, I imagine, some sort of like share your work feed, or like, do you want a place where people can share their work from the course? Like they're going through the course materials.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think because there's going to be, reflection questions and, stuff to do every week. So, people could share those, to the extent that they felt
for sure,
they wanted to share it in public. They could have two sides of it, basically, like a personal and a public side of their story.
Yeah. So this pre-course prompt would essentially be like, your initial lesson, whatever the first lesson within the course materials. That's where they would see this first prompt, and then you could encourage them to go post it in the share your work feed. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can tailor all this too to kind of myths and stories and hero's journey and
all the language around it.
I think it.
So
yeah. I like these ideas. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is a really good start. This was exactly what I needed.
Good.
Thank you so much.
I felt like I was rambling with a lot of what I was talking about. So if
some
ideas came up or some.
It made it all clear,
That's good.
Yeah. And as we move forward over the next few months, I'll have things to show you and get your feedback on too, which I'm excited about.
What's your, do you have your kind of launch day set?
Yeah. May 1st is the day it's going to open. May Day. I thought that would be a fun,
Nice. So you got lots of time.
I got lots of time. Yeah. I didn't want to rush it at all. I want it to be awesome and well thought out.
Yeah. And I guess you will want all the course materials will be completed, right? Like,
yeah, they'll be completed.
Yeah.
And
so
that isn't going to be too hard. Because it's really, the course materials are going to be sharing the basics and getting people thinking. And then it's going to be mostly I think the meat of the course is going to happen in these weekly meetings.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about that.
Awesome. And you'll get to see like, since Spaces launches in December,
Right.
You'll get to see lots of examples of what spaces look like as you're kind of building out yours. So that'll be really cool. Be helpful.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
Well, I guess we should wrap it up.
Yeah. Good chat today. I think what highlighted, like, there are so many weeds that we could have gotten into around,
I know.
anything launch related or sales related or ThriveCart, Zapier, what tools are you using, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So thanks for bringing us back to kind of the core of what you wanted to explore today.
I have to do that with myself all the time. I'm like, okay, this is not for today.
Yeah.
It's not for today.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks so much, Doug. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot today.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. Great conversation. Thanks to everyone listening or viewing.
Yeah, and if you have a question for us, you can ask it on the YouTube channel, in the comments. We're happy to answer questions if you got them. Otherwise, we hope you enjoy the questions we ask each other.
Yeah, hopefully so. I bet they are. Otherwise, it wouldn't be watching, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that's good. All right. We'll see everyone next time.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.